If everybody's ready, I'd like to call our meeting to order. Welcome to our SVCE Board of Directors meeting for May. And can we start with roll call, please?
Yes, good evening. Chair Abekoga.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Director Nunez.
Here.
Director Sayak.
Here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Sinks.
Here.
Alternate Director Tyson.
Here.
Director Gibbons.
Here.
Director
Here.
Bruins. Director Ellenberg. Director Martinez Beltran. Thank you. I will note Director Tovar and Director Elahi are absent.
Great. Thank you. We will now go to public comment on matters not listed on the agenda. The public may provide comments on any item not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak? If not, I'll close that item and we'll move on to the consent calendar. Are there any board members wishing to pull any items? Any members of the public wishing to pull? I just wanted to comment on item 1C, and this is the resolution to authorize our CEO to execute a cost-sharing agreement between several of our neighboring CEAs. And I just wanted to note how this is a very notable endeavor and accomplishment to have 5 CCAs working together to collaborate and to collaborate in terms of operational projects. This will be the first project where we'll be cost sharing and collaborating to purchase RA. And overall, for our customers, this is good news because it should lower our costs, and it also shows that CCAs can work together. So there's sometimes we get some criticism that we're small, we're the small fish and whatnot, but by working together, we really can become more influential. And this contract does offer flexibility for other projects that may benefit from joint participation. So we hope that our legislators in Sacramento are watching us and that they can see that CCAs do positive work and we can work together, and hopefully they will support us even more. So with that, is there a motion and a second?
Go CCAs.
I'll second. And I am also excited about this. I mean, we're working together with PC on reach codes, and here's another example of how we're allied in our common quest.
And with that, I move consent calendars items 1A, B, C, and D.
Oh, sorry.
And the second by Member Sinks. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll go to our regular calendar, and we'll start with item 2, our CEO report.
Thank you, Chair Abekoga. In addition to our report, I just wanted to mention one thing, which is our neighbor PCE did Okay, how about now? Sorry about that. So in addition to my report, I want to say that our neighbor PCE received a bond rating from Moody's. That's a significant development. They are the second CCA to get a bond rating. I think that really talks about the stability of our business model. And of course, we were planning, according to our strategic plan, to get a bond rating by February 2021. I've just reached out to PCE, and I think we may accelerate our efforts and maybe advance that date. So we're going.
What was their rating, Gresh? I missed that.
B? It was the same
BAA.
as MC's, BAA.
They're killing me. They're killing me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Investment grade.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I'd now like to ask Hillary to come up and give you an update on legislative and regulatory issues, and also open to any questions you may have on the CEO report.
How's that? There we go. All right, I need it tonight, too. I'm losing my voice. So, good evening. Hillary Staver, Regulatory and Legislative Affairs. I've got one rather large piece of news tonight, and then a couple things that we're really kind of teeing up for next month. What's that? When you start like that, you gotta go. All right. So, on direct access, this month we finally got the proposed decision that we've been waiting for. So if you recall, we've been running through a really expedited proceeding at the Commission this spring to implement SB 237 passed last fall in time to meet the legislative mandated deadline of mid-June. So at the end of April, we got a proposed decision that lays out how this 4,000 gigawatt hours of extra direct access is going to be implemented around the state. So there are a couple of things to know about this. Most importantly, they've split it up into 2 years. So they're going to roll out 2,000 gigawatt hours on January 1st, 2020, and the second 2,000 on January 1st, 2021. However, the process for identifying who is going to be included in each of those batches is quite expedited. So of that 4,000 gigawatt hours, about 1,800 of it is allocated to PG&E's service territory, of which we are a part, obviously. And so there are going to be 2 lottery runs this spring and summer to determine who is in which of those batches. So the first one is going to use the existing wait list, and we will find out by July 15th which among our customers is included in those selected for that batch. The second drawing will conclude by mid-September, and that will be a refresh of the wait list. So they'll regenerate all the numbers in line for everybody, and so some will presumably improve and others move down. So we finally got some direction on that. We are still working on a couple things related to improved visibility into the wait list. We would like to have a little bit more advance notice of who may be departing. And one thing that was not included in the proposed decision that we will be asking for in the comments is to apply the schedule from Resolution E4907, which some of you may recall was imposed on CCAs back at the beginning of last year, onto these new departing DA customers. As of now, they've been given kind of an exception to the existing resource adequacy compliance schedule in order to finish these 2 lotteries by the end of the summer. So we have a couple things that we are still working on with the Commission. We've reached out to the Commissioner's offices, but in general, we should expect that these lotteries will go ahead, and you will be seeing at next month's June meeting a presentation on our developing strategy for how to retain some of these customers through some innovative product ideas. So to be continued on that front. I'll stop there. Any questions about direct access?
Am I reading too far into what you had to say, is that they're being given an exemption from having to have RA?
No, they're not being given an exemption from having to have RA, but the Commission has modified the calendar, the timelines for which they must demonstrate compliance in order to make this rollout happen sooner. If they had to comply with the same schedule that we now do through that resolution, there would be a delay beyond what's listed in the proposed decision. But everyone, including the ESPs that serve these new customers, will still have to buy and show RA products. All right. Then a couple other updates. In integrated resource planning, the proposed decision was approved at the end of April. So we are going to go ahead with an additional track in that proceeding that looks at the development of central procurement for resources that are not picked up by LSEs that previously committed to and to picking up in their IRPs. So general takeaway there is that the language was softened somewhat right before the vote through some red lines, but we are going to be continuing to have that discussion on the integrated resource planning front. Similarly, on the resource adequacy proceeding, we're moving forward with the conversation about central buying. So we're expecting to be talking about this general concept of central procurement in both of those proceedings through the end of this year. Actually, CalCCA is going to be hosting the next public workshop in the resource adequacy proceeding on May 15th, talking about who a central buyer might be. So we're moving ahead with those proceedings. And then finally on rates, we are continuing to get the last few implementation letters from PG&E for the 2019 rates. So you'll be seeing at the next meeting in June a proposal for our official new 2019 rates to go into effect after the final PG&E rates kick in on July 1st. So that's regulatory. And then moving over to the legislative side, excuse me. We're coming up on an important time. So we have in mid-April, we had spring recess. Then the last week of April, that was an important week for us because that was when a number of CCA relevant bills were passing through the energy committees in the Senate and the Assembly. Those are not committees where SVC legislators have good representation. So we were not yet facing a lot of SVC legislator votes, but that is an important place to get friendly amendments into bills. So we had a good week there. We did get a number of committee analyses coming out from committee consultants that included amendments friendly to CCAs. So in general, that was a good round. We have a number of bills that we're still working on with authors' offices to try and get further amendments in. But we're now moving into the appropriations part of the process. So the 3rd of May was the last day for policy committees to send bills to the floor. Now any bills that relate to fiscal matters are being heard in appropriations this week and next. And in late May, that's going to be the first important outreach period for us because that's when we move to floor votes in the first house. So we'll want to reach out to our legislators, ask them to vote the way we need them to. So you'll be getting some updates. Oh, thank you. You'll be getting some updates if we have asked for legislators, and then we'll have the legislative ad hoc committee kind of regroup in June, look at what came through the first house, and gear up for the rest of the session. So that's what I've got. Does anybody have questions on this or anything else?
Member Smith, did you have a question? Oh, okay. I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions on the CEO report, we'd be...
Any other questions for our CEO? No, if not, thank you.
Okay.
Great. We'll move on to our next item, item number 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there public comment? Any public comment on the CEO's report? Nope. All right, we'll move on to item 3, the SVCE and Monterey Bay Community Power 2019 Joint Request for Proposals for Carbon-Free Renewable Resources Update. And our staff presenter is our Director of Power Resources, Monica Padilla.
Good evening, directors. I'm Monica Padilla, Director of Power Resources. And my item tonight is purely for information. Sorry. Okay, so just quickly, what I hope to cover tonight. This is a quick outline of the objectives of our RFP, the RFP products that are being sought, and the process that we'll use to procure, and then kind of the next steps. So we being Silicon Valley Clean Energy and Monterey Bay Community Power, have issued an RFP. We released the RFP in April 17th, both with a shared objective to meet the following. Both entities have a carbon-free goal. That is, they want to be 100% carbon-free on an annual basis. And so part of what we're trying to get out of this RFP is some renewable resources that'll help us achieve that goal. Specifically, we're looking to procure on a combined basis about 800,000 megawatt hours, 400,000 each, which represents about 10% of our respective loads. And we hope to get some long-term renewable resources out of this, and long-term being defined as 10 years or greater, so that it helps us achieve our SB 350 long-term requirements related to renewable portfolio standard. And we hope to have this start as early as 2021 delivery, but no later than December 31st, 2022. Another objective of this RFP is to secure some resources at a fixed price, and this will help us manage our costs on a going forward basis. We also hope to achieve resources that provide for enhancement of grid reliability, and that is resources that deliver during certain times of the year, of the year and day and month, where there's better value or more value, or resources that come with storage, for example, and also resources that come with resource adequacy. And then last but not least, for us, specifically Silicon Valley Clean Energy, since we have this decarbonization roadmap, we're hoping to also acquire resources that help our customers meet some of their electrification objectives as well. Just a reminder, this is what the state requires right now in terms of RPS, based on SB 350 and more recently SB 100. And so when we talk about RPS, generally we talk about compliance periods. Oops, excuse me. So right now, the focus of this RFP is to acquire, again, renewables that start in 2022. So that's delivery in compliance period 4. And compliance period 4 right now has an overall RPS requirement of 40%. That is, 40% of your retail sales have to be from resources that are considered renewable. And 65% of that 40% has to come from long-term resources, again, 10 years or greater. This is a table summarizing essentially what we need to get to our RPS mandate for compliance period 4, and then compliance period 5 and compliance period 6, and then how much we still need to get to our long-term requirements. So overall, for compliance period 4, we have a 20% RPS shortfall. So the 3 contracts that we signed last year, the 2 solar plus storage plus the wind contract out of New Mexico, got us to about 20% of our RPS needs, again at a 40%, and we've achieved about a 20% of our 26% long-term requirement. So if we are able to acquire an additional 400,000 megawatt hours or 400 gigawatt hours, we will slightly surpass our long-term mandate and get closer to our overall requirement for compliance period 4. And this just kind of shows it in a graph form. So for compliance period 4, again, starting in 2021, the green area are the resources that we've already committed to, that we hope to come online during that compliance period. The yellow area are the new resources that we hope to acquire through this RFP process. And so you could see there that we get above the long-term requirement, which is the black solid line. And we are a little bit short of what the RPS mandate is for that period. That's the state requirement, not SVCE's goal, but the state requirement. So we'd still have some purchases due, and we'll decide whether we're going to make those purchases as new resources, existing resources, long-term resources, short-term resources, when we come to the board with our long-term integrated resource plan. So in the RFP, we had some requirements so that it met our objectives, again, of what we're trying to achieve through this process. And one of them is that it be RPS eligible, of course, and that it be a PCC1, so that's a excuse me, I can't remember what it is. So it's a bucket 1 resource. Why can't I remember? Portfolio content 1. Portfolio category content 1. So that's kind of like the premium of the renewable power product resources. It's the one that carries the highest premium, and it's the one that the state prefers that we pursue as well. We're also seeking project attributes associated with the energy, including ancillary services and resource adequacy, capacity. Project location, our preference is that they be in-state as defined by the California Energy Commission for RPS PCC1 resources, which also includes that they can actually be out-of-state, but they just have to be delivered as a first point of interconnection into California. A delivery term, again, they have to start no later than December 31st, 2022. And could be a minimum of 10 years, but we will also entertain longer tenors, such as 15 and 20 years. And then the price has to be in the form of a fixed price, that is $ per megawatt hour with no escalator, but we all will entertain alternative prices, but at a minimum, they have to give us a fixed price. Energy storage, so this is one where we're highly encouraging it for solar, but we're not mandating it. But we will give it extra points if it comes with storage. And I can explain that a little bit later if that's of interest. And then lastly, what the minimum capacity of a project has to meet in order to be able to bid into our RFP. So Monterey Bay and Silicon Valley actually retained the services from a consultant firm called Ascend Analytics. They're experts in the field in evaluating projects before they come online to get the most value out of them. And so they are part of our evaluation team. And so our first step in the process will be to, once proposals are submitted to us, is to take all these projects and essentially using the scoring rubric that we developed where we put weights for different categories, we will evaluate, rank all of these projects. And we anticipate getting actually more than 100 proposals. It's not inconceivable that we'd get that much. So it's quite an effort to evaluate all these. And then one proposal can actually have multiple offers, so multiple prices. So even if you get 100 proposals, you could end up looking at 300 different offers. So it's quite a heavy lift for us. Once we've done the scoring and ranking, we'll put the projects through this model that Ascend Analytics has called PowerSim, which looks at the value of the energy that is delivered on an hourly basis, and will actually measure it against our load needs, and it'll tell us how well it fits and what the overall cost is going to be, not just from a PPA standpoint, but from the value of energy delivered when it gets delivered. So that's important as well. Once we've identified those projects that meet our requirements and in terms of quantity, then essentially those become shortlisted projects. And then at that point, we will notify the bidders that they've been shortlisted and start the process of negotiations. This is just a quick schedule for where we're at. Again, we issued the RFP on the 17th. We had a bidders webinar last week. Proposals are due on the 17th. We hope to do negotiations over the summer with execution by the end of the year. So it's a pretty tight timeline, but we feel like that's necessary in order for us to get these projects up and running by that compliance period 4 deadline. And then this is just overall what the process is like. So with that, any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I was just curious, as you build more of these, does the cost go down as more of these units come online? Or is this, you expect it to stay the same?
Well, the cost has been coming down since RPS was first established in the state of California, mostly because the demand has been coming up and the technology cost has been going down. So it's quite conceivable that the offers that we'll see for the same type of technology that we approved last go around might be lower than what we contracted for last time.
Also, when you do the estimates for the percentage needs that are being met, how do you account for population shifts or use shifts as you know
Right.
more factories need more servers or clouds or whatever else?
That's a good point. So we have a load forecast, and that load forecast has whatever growth assumptions we have in there to deal with changes in how people use their energy and the amount of energy that they use. And so it's not a very steep load growth. It's pretty flat, especially for this area. But as we see growth happen, or if we see changes, that gets incorporated into our load forecast going forward as well.
Member
you.
Gibbons?
Thank you. Very good question, Director, because I was going to ask the similar one related to the housing and housing legislation. So I simply recommend that staff keep an eye on what housing legislation gets approved over the next 2 years, because if the housing is increased to the magnitude or even close to the magnitude of what's being proposed in legislation, that may be a consideration in our projections.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Other questions? Board members? Nope. All right. Then I'll open this up for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak? I see no cards, so I'll bring it back to the board. And this is a discussion item, so
No action.
no action tonight.
Yeah, and we will provide you updates through the CEO report. And if there are any significant updates, we'll have a presentation. But similar to the last time, as we go through the selection process, we'll provide you updates.
Are there any comments? Would you like to make a comment?
Just a small one, and it's more for us. Staff's going to find a bunch of interesting suppliers with interesting projects. But I wonder out loud the wisdom of securing a solar project without storage. And I know that we will get maybe some bids like that. I know you've weighted it towards storage, but when it comes back, if it doesn't have storage, I might want to say more.
Yeah, I think
We'll
we,
have to look at the prices, I get it.
right, we have to look at the prices, not just the prices, but the value of that energy once it gets delivered to us as well. And so while storage does certainly enhance the value of solar, it's, there may be another project that does, it's not solar plus storage that looks better to us. So it's just wanting to keep all of our options open.
Oh, no, I get it 100%. I
Okay.
get it 100%.
I just had a curious question, if I may. What's the efficiency of this conversion? I mean, like in the regular steam generated or coal powered power engines, I mean, you got like 30% or 40% at the most, or 34%. The solar conversion efficiency, are you running at 100% on these things, or 40, 50%, or what is the general conversion efficiency? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure I understand what the conversion, but I can tell you that if you install 100 megawatts of solar capacity, then you only get maybe 30% capacity factor, so it's energy associated with 30% of the capacity.
Okay, yeah.
But the fuel, I think the fuel is pretty efficient, though, itself,
Well,
the sun.
yeah, power generation is running around 30, 32%, I guess, so it's still close. I thought it'd be higher than that, but anyway, I was curious. Thank you.
I have Member Beltran, Member Gibbons, and then Member Smith.
Okay, sorry. I was wondering, is there any type of application process that they need to qualify for before being considered?
Not necessarily, but when they submit their proposal, they'll submit information about their organization as well. And so we'll take into consideration their experience and their specific experience with developing projects in California, getting them interconnected and onto the grid. So typically, if you've got that kind of experience, you're pretty well vetted already in California. Most of when we go to shortlist them and negotiating, that's where a lot of the information about the contract will happen, but we don't have an application necessarily. We have a lot of forms that they have to submit, but they're mostly related to the project themselves and somewhat related to the organization as a whole.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Member Gibbons?
Thank you. Along the lines with some of the questioning, I'm assuming that the algorithm that is being used to evaluate the proposals, is there a cost reduction going forward if the contracts are 10 years or 15 or 20 years? The expectation is that the cost of producing the energy goes down and down and down, so we're not paying a flat rate.
Well,
If
so
I
the
said that
the bidder will have to submit an expected generation profile for the 10 years or 15 or 20 years, whatever they offer. And to the extent that there's degradation in their project, that will be shown on their
Pricing.
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 So we will look at the prices all kind of, we'll look at a levelized price to compare them one to the other. So that'll be pretty simple. The complicated thing is trying to assess what the energy value is going to be from these resources. Over time, yeah. So we will look, so all of them deliver at a different location point and have different generation profiles. So this model that we'll use with Sen Analytics has the ability to look at different price scenarios. It'll look like 1,000 price scenarios if we asked it to come up with the expected value from each of the projects.
Member Smith?
Yeah, I just had a couple quick questions. So it looks like, so after this cycle, do you have any estimates about what our, I guess, compliance will look like? Will we still have a shortfall, or will we be caught up or more than caught up?
So if we go back to this table here. Put my glasses on. So for compliance period 4, if we acquire 400, then we will essentially be at 28% for that compliance period 4, and the RPS requirement for this from the state is 40%. So we'll still have a shortfall. So again, the gray area in this compliance period 4 on this graph here represents our shortfall. The gray area that is under the dotted blue line. The whole gray area is our shortfall under SVCEA's policy of 50% RPS and 50% large hydro or carbon free. So yeah, we will have a shortfall, but that doesn't have to be met through long-term resources. That could be met through shorter-term resources, which we may want to do. Not meet it all with long-term resources, so that we have some flexibility and different types of just diversification overall for that period. But we could meet it with additional long terms. And if we see some really good resources at a really good price, we may actually come back and say, we said we only wanted to buy 400 worth, but we might actually recommend buying some additional stuff because the price is really good and it makes sense.
Okay, so, yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
Mhm.
That's what I get for looking at the chart instead of the graph. And then my next question is, this may be a question for the CEO or for the policy, but are there any pending legislation that would weaken these requirements, or are we free and clear for now?
You mean weaken the RPS requirements, SB 350?
Right.
No, but SB 100, which is the 100% carbon-free, is going to require some changes to our rules in California. But that's TBD.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's pending. Okay. And then I guess my last question is on the joint RFP schedule and either the graph or the chart, either way. What are primarily is the next checkpoint for the board to provide input? Is that going to be that box in the approval? And we don't have any decisions to make before November, December, is that correct?
I think what we did last time is we actually, once we had shortlisted some projects, we came back to the board, is that correct? And I updated the board and said, these are the projects that we shortlisted and these are the ones that we're going to start negotiations with. I wasn't here, actually.
Yeah, we'd be happy to. As far as a decision, I think that's what's here. We'll be coming back to you in the fourth quarter of the year. But in terms of updates, we'll provide you frequent updates.
Okay, so it looks like a pretty major checkpoint would be coming up in August-ish, because we aren't meeting in July, so it would be.
No, the major one is going to be November, December.
Right, but you'll have the short list by
Yes.
the August
Yeah.
meeting. And, okay.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Great. Any other comments?
I'll just add, as a member of the risk committee, Monica, you and your team are doing an enormous amount of great work.
Thank you.
Very impressed with the hedging and other things that you are doing that we don't talk about here because, frankly, it's our confidential business and we're in a competitive environment. But I just want to say how much I appreciate you and your team. I
Thank
think
you. That's very nice.
you are serving our residents and businesses well.
Yes, thank you. Good work.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
I think with that, we will move on to the next item. I'm sorry. Is there any public comment on this item? I don't have any cards, so I will move on then to item 4, our interim update on the built environment and mobility programs with our presenter is Amy Bailey, Director of Decarbonization and Grid Innovation Programs. Welcome.
Good evening, directors. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. So this is going to be a fairly brief update. Happy to answer questions either throughout or at the end. I did want to preface it by mentioning that this is not a comprehensive programs update. If you recall, in the last board packet, we had the quarterly programs report that did go through program by program and provided an update on everything. But this is specifically more time-sensitive updates, focused mainly on reach codes and EV charging infrastructure. Okay. So yes, the SVCE staff has been working pretty full force on the reach code effort. We wanted to, certainly provide an update to you all on what those activities look like right now. So we do have draft codes that are public that we've are soliciting comments on and soliciting feedback from our cities on. We've also been organizing some meetings with individual member agencies, any member agency that wants a more dedicated meeting with their internal staff, and we can bring along the technical consultants. And so some of those meetings have taken place and are being scheduled. We're also working on tool development, specifically outreach-related tools. And the one that I'll highlight here is this one-pager that describes everything about the REACH code effort. And so this would be more for kind of public consumption that the directors or other city council members can engage their constituents and stakeholders. And then we have some enhanced stakeholder engagement activity that I'll talk about in more detail on the next slide. And so these activities are all underway, and this engagement will be taking place over the coming couple months. And then it will transition a bit more from SVCE kind of leading the process to really the individual member agencies leading their internal and external review and approval processes in the August, September, October timeframe for those member agencies deciding to move forward with REACH codes. And all of this would be leading up to a January 1st, 2020 implementation. So regarding the so-called enhanced stakeholder engagement, I think as many of the directors have brought up in prior meetings, there are a number of different stakeholders that we don't necessarily interact with regularly or historically. And we got some help from Joint Venture Silicon Valley, working together with them since they specialize really in public-private partnerships. And so we're engaging them to help us engage these different industry groups that they have established relationships with to make sure that we're understanding what different interests and concerns that these specific groups have. And so this is an additional kind of outreach effort that's happening in parallel with engagement of the city staff and broader public. Many directors have also asked for more visibility into their individual member agencies' participation. We only have limited visibility into that, basically the activities that we've organized, whether someone is registered or not, or whether they've submitted a letter of intent or not. And so this is just a summary table of the information that we have to date based on the participation that we've kind of logged. Happy to have individual follow-ups at any point with any individual member agencies about this. But I'm sure there's a lot happening behind the scenes that's not reflected here at a staff level, at a city staff level. And regarding the REACH code effort, I think really the ask, so to speak, at this point is for any member agencies that are interested, we would encourage you to submit your letter of intent for the $10,000 grant, ideally no later than June. And we'd also ask our board to help support on the following items, to be really the champion of these REACH codes and help encourage your member agencies to participate and promote the assistance, including the $10,000 grant and other technical assistance that's available, and forward information about this effort through your appropriate channels. And just on the last point, the one-pager that I had mentioned will be completed by the end of the week. We'll be forwarding that to you by email that you could easily forward your city council members, city managers, staff. But we'd also, again, welcome any feedback of additional tools that we can help create to help you engage your city councils. And so that's the main update on the REACH code effort, but we also have a couple other programs in the built environment that are set to roll out within the coming couple months. So I did want to mention that those are in progress and in the pipeline as well. And then on mobility, the primary priority program identified in the roadmap is the development of this EV charging infrastructure joint action plan. And so that's what we've been focused on the last couple months. And development is underway. We've seen a really great response by our city staff members and other industry stakeholders, the charge points, EVgo's, eMotorworks of the world. And so we had one in-person workshop late April that had over a couple dozen industry and member agency stakeholders. And we've also been sending surveys to our customers to inform the development of this joint action plan, and have gotten over 660 customer responses. So we're on track to complete that joint action plan next month, We'll provide an update to the board at the August meeting, and then program rollout will happen thereafter. And if you recall, there was kind of a parallel effort. SVCE helped form a regional coalition with the other CCAs and municipal utilities in Santa Clara and San Mateo County. We submitted a letter of intent to apply for block grant funding from the California Energy Commission. That letter was submitted in February. And we've been working across the coalition and with the CEC since that time, finalizing program requirements. And the customer surveys mentioned on the last slide and that industry feedback on the last slide is timed such that that feedback is feeding into these program requirements. And the decision from the CEC on whether to award us funding or not will actually happen pretty quickly. It's supposed to happen by the end of June. The third bullet there, point there, I did want to also mention, so the funding available this year is apparently less than in prior years, and so we're trying to change that. And so there have been a number of CCAs in our coalition, CCAs and munis in our coalition that submitted letters to legislators to try to increase those funding levels to help ensure that we're getting funding in the 2020 year. If that doesn't happen, it may be delayed, basically. Okay, just a few other brief updates. We did, if you recall from the last board meeting with a quarterly programs update, we mentioned in addition to the staff report attachments that had the matrix update, we wanted to create kind of a PR version of the update to help you engage constituents and help us engage customers. And so we have created kind of the first version of that, which we can give you copies of. Oh, great. I heard you have copies. Great. So this is, V1. As things progress, we certainly welcome any feedback you may have on how to improve this. And also, we think it will be useful, but if it's not useful, then how can we change it to be useful? Or if there's no potential there, we can just stop doing it. But I think it will hopefully be useful to you all, and we think it will be useful for us as well. We also held an industry stakeholder workshop on May 2nd for SVCE's virtual power plant program. And this was really focused on industry and state agency policymaker feedback. So really specialized feedback on what different program design options are available to a CCA, to SVCE, to kind of narrow that down based on a lot of the legislative and regulatory risk that exists and also the current state of technology and economics. And so it was a very industry-focused workshop. We have a discussion paper that will be updated based on that feedback, and then the program recommendations refined by next month. And so that is happening in parallel. We are also reviewing 15 applications for innovative pilot projects with external partners through Innovation On-Ramp. And we'll provide an update to the board next month on the ones that we're going to fund. And we have an RFP on the street. So we are in need of some program administrative support. We issued an RFP last month. The deadline is next week. So hoping to get those contracts as well to you in June. So I think June is going to be a very busy month. But those are pretty quick updates. Happy to answer any questions you have or drill down into detail of any particular issue.
Thank you so much. And there's appendices. There's a lot more to this. The executive board committee had a chance to get a more in-depth report, but we thought it would be best to take it in parts. So part 2 is coming in June, but happy to take questions. Any questions for Amy? Yes, Member Gibbons?
At our budget session last night, the City of Campbell added the REACH code effort, so I will work to get you the letter.
Great.
Great.
And then, just as an FYI, we in our city have had significant challenges with PG&E actually providing grid connection to new projects and large users. So as we go forward with the EV ideas, I don't want us to discount the challenge we have with that. I mean, it's been substantive, 6-month, 9-month delays, and limitations on what capacity is even being offered. And then, this is kind of a fun thing, and I think it fits in here as part of our programs. The AIA California Council is managing a design competition, and I can explain at the end of the meeting. But I would like to know if the board would accept and staff would think, I'm helping with the design criteria, and I'm saying we need to assume the REACH codes are in place and that people understand the time of use codes. So if there's any criteria that we think we would like to see happen as part of the program, I'd be happy to provide that to this competition, and I'll tell you more about it later.
Great, thank you. Member Ellenberg? Yes.
Thank you. I think I've got it now. Thank you. I want to make a comment on the brochure, which I think is exceptionally readable and clear, and I think that I am probably the best test case on this board. If I'm following it, it's good, it's clear, it's basic. And I would very much like to be able to give this out to people. It helps with my explanation. I have a question about the chart on the back. Moving into the top graph, fiscal years 21, 22, and 23, we're only showing budget for mobility. I assume that we're not abandoning all of the other programs, but help me understand what that means.
Thank you for asking that question. I can see how that could be misleading. So for the program's budget, during the budgeting cycle, the board has adopted 2% of operating revenues to be dedicated towards programs. And what you're seeing here is basically what has been kind of allocated to certain program areas. And so in February, we had a request to the board, which the board approved, of $8 million in program funding for mobility over those 4 fiscal years. We haven't come back with specific program requests for the remaining program areas that far out, but yes, rest assured it will be populated. We intend to have make full use of our program's budget.
I wonder if there's a way to capture that here, because it looks like a shift in what we're doing, although I understand the explanation that that's all that's allocated or anticipated so far.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Sure. Also happy to share that in the last 2 weeks, the county has installed 8 charge points for electric vehicles at 70 West Heading. Those are the first charging stations at county facilities, and hoping that more will come. I keep thinking about the REACH codes in connection with the Measure A housing bond, and what a great opportunity that is. But of course, the county is the bank, but not the developer, and not the entity actually creating any of the permits or building requirements. So I would actually be happy to hear thoughts on, and I see Liz can't wait to share them, on what the county's role might be, knowing that we are not the ones to grant the permits.
After the meeting.
Oh, okay.
All right, I will
Great.
wait in suspense. That's my comment for right now. Thank you so
Other
much.
comments, questions? Yes.
I'll just comment that I too like this because it's so content laden. I think the target audience, however, might appreciate maybe fewer words and more graphics or pictures, because I mean, we have the full up brochure, right, that has all the words, but some of the detail here for a casual, exactly what's happening and when and deadline and all this, you could probably cut out a bunch of the words that would impart great meaning to you and me, but might land better with typical audience willing to read a 2-sided 8.5 by 11. And my suggestion on the budget is you could simply do the 2 years that we've fully allocated, because it does look strange and any footnote isn't going to adequately, I mean, I would probably just do those years for which we've really committed programs and yeah, take the space to do as the political consultants say, do eye candy. So,
Yes, Member Smith.
but I think it's great, and I would welcome comments by any of my colleagues who haven't submitted their letters of intent yet about what their status is. Nancy?
They're already done.
We've done, yeah.
Well, you know, if Silicon Valley Clean Energy wanted to show a longer chart, I'm sure Tim Kirby, our Director of Finance, would be happy to tell you how we do our 20-year budgeting. He's putting in this nice ERP system, and we got it all down. So, you know, a 20-year budget would actually go very well for an agency such as this. So I'm sure we would work with you on that. Well, we've been busy with our green building codes, so we just updated those with the full intention to move full steam ahead on the REACH codes, as I'm sure staff can tell you. So I believe we're in, but this is, I'm pleased to see the data sheet. This is something that I think people can really connect with, and they see the benefit of it, and it's great. I do have some typographical design suggestions, but I think it's very much in a good direction, and I'm pleased to see it, and I'm also pleased to get the update, a brief update. It's good. So very much appreciated. And yeah, so how do we get more copies of these, I guess would be my... Great. Okay. I would love some copies. All right. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Member Bruins?
Well, I think
Okay. I never know how to work your mics here in Cupertino. There you go. I know, and I'm sitting here, because I don't even have a display in front of me. I've got the control panel or something. So my first question was answered, which is how do we get more copies of these? And I would actually like them before council meeting on Tuesday. And then a question I had for you was, in terms of the other updates, we said we had 15 applications for the innovation on-ramp. What was your expectation?
For number of applications, so we did a so-called soft launch for this, and so we had been accumulating a list of interested people for basically since the board had adopted the roadmap last December, and then just proactively reached out to those people who had expressed interest, and because it was way more than 15, it was quite a few dozen by that point. And I was expecting more than 10 applications, but I don't know exactly how many I was expecting. But I think perhaps more pertinent than even the number, which I didn't mention here, I think that all of them were very on point. It looked like the applicants had reviewed the webinar. We hosted a webinar to provide more information about the program and SVCE and the decarb roadmap, and like what types of projects are interesting to us based on our mission statement and based on those strategies. And so they were 15 good applications.
Excellent.
So,
Great,
yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I just want to note that on the chart, despite not having an X by the LOI box, Mountain View is proceeding forward. Frankly, we just didn't need the $10,000 to do it.
Can we get theirs?
We'll take it, but it wasn't that urgent for us. I do have one public comment card from Diane Bailey.
Good evening, directors and staff. My name is Diane Bailey. I'm director of Menlo Spark. We're a local community group aiming for a zero carbon future here in Silicon Valley. And wow, you guys have done a remarkable job. It's really exciting to hear about all of the programs underway and the support. I think there are about 9 cities in support of those REACH codes, and that is phenomenal, if I counted them correctly. I'm here to tell you about a new campaign that's emerged. It's called the Fossil Free Buildings Campaign for Silicon Valley. And Menlo Spark started this at the beginning of the year. We've been working closely with your staff and staff at Peninsula Clean Energy. We have 16 member organizations within our campaign, including groups like Sierra Club, Loma Prieta chapter, like Carbon Free Mountain View, and Carbon Free Silicon Valley. You can find the information on all of our 16 members, and they're growing every week, on our website, which is fossilfreebuildings.org. And really just wanted to tell you a little bit more about our campaign. We've been developing resources in support of a swift transition from fossil fuels within our built environment. And by consensus, our campaign has decided to really focus in on the REACH codes and work closely with staff. We think the staff and the consulting team have done an excellent job on the REACH codes so far, and we've been reaching out to city staff and various officials and getting a lot of good reception, because it turns out that most people do not love fossil fuels and really support a swift transition. So back in September of last year, we commissioned a report from a consulting firm that builds zero carbon, all electric buildings all over the nation. They're called Redwood Energy. They helped us produce this zero carbon commercial construction guide. And it contains examples of projects that over the years have built all electric and zero carbon and have saved money handily, and done so by utilizing smart design principles. We have a multifamily guide that focuses on case studies of affordable housing and other types of housing that are zero carbon and all electric, and that's coming out in June. And we'll be working with affordable housing partners and developers to do kind of a lunch and learn on the subject. We've been reaching out to affordable housing developers and realizing that there's a little bit of pushback, a little bit of concern about what it means to go all electric and forgo natural gas and fossil fuels on site. Some of the information out there on the internet is outdated, as one finds. And so we're really trying to reach out and gain support. We would welcome all of you to join our campaign or support us or work with us. We are open to everyone who supports our goal to transition from fossil fuels. I wanted to note that we're a little bit concerned about the consulting agreement with joint venture Silicon Valley, because our campaign has been working for many months now to build support for a transition to all electric clean buildings. We're concerned that this undermines the credibility of the campaign, and we found a lack of willingness with joint venture Silicon Valley to work with our campaign. We have a very collaborative approach. Our doors are open to all stakeholders that don't receive funding or gifts from fossil fuel industries, and we want to continue those collaborations and work in good faith across Silicon Valley, and we're establishing partnerships throughout the Bay Area to really promote all electric clean buildings. We are hearing a lot of concerns from elected officials about the health and safety of natural gas. And as it turns out, to build all electric and forgo gas is actually much cheaper, anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 on a given development. And for very large scale commercial developments, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars of avoided costs, drilling under roadways to upgrade failing pipelines and establish new gas pipeline connections. And so this is really a money-saving effort at the end of the day, but there are significant public health and safety issues involved. And so I hope that each of you will join the campaign to adopt the REACH codes. And please feel free to get on our website, fossilfreebuildings.org, to get more information, get in touch with us. We'd like to partner with you. And of course, we will continue to support SVCE and Peninsula Clean Energy's excellent efforts in this regard. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? If not, I'll bring it back to the board. Yes, Member Gibbons.
So, I would just hope that we would all be individually on your mailing list for all these programs and events you're talking about.
Great.
Could I add one more thought?
Yes.
I would be very interested as a help to us in seeing the status of the cities in PCE's territory. I mean, I think it'd be easy to just get their update on a periodic basis. Because I think the more cities we see doing this, the more comfortable
Other
our
cities
chambers
will
and
be.
others are going to
Yeah.
be when we say, hey, we want to do, something that's going to cost, or not. Maybe it's a myth that it costs, but the perception is it's new and right? So if we see that there's a bigger block of cities going, and we're seeing this, like, I think it's important that we get an update every month personally, because
Yes.
this is really hard work, right? It's really hard work. Panama's talk was really compelling to me, but different people get reached in different ways, and some people just want to see, oh, okay, so I'm comfortable because 10 other cities have done this now.
I can mention the PCE board meeting towards the end of April of last month did have a similar chart, and so in a follow-up email we can link that for you so you can see.
We will
That'd
send
be
it out
great.
in the Friday email with the one-pager. To all of
Perfect,
you, we'll
perfect.
send you that too.
Much
Great.
appreciated.
Member Elahi and then Vice
Yeah,
Chair.
I noticed you said there's a time, you'd like the LOIs for the 10,000 submitted in June sometimes. Was that June 30th date, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter, but
I mean, as soon as possible, I guess, is what you're trying to say.
Right.
Has any, I mean, for my part, I'll talk to my city manager also to move along. But have you guys thought about calling all the city managers in all the cities to see if that's still on their books or they've forgotten about it, so that you can push them faster?
Yeah, that communication has happened,
Okay.
and I actually spoke to the Santa Clara County City Managers Association this afternoon, and mentioned the LOI. The webinars have also mentioned the letter of intent. So I think it's just going to be a multi-pronged, repetitive
That's right.
kind
Absolutely.
of deal.
Yeah, it may be worth it talking to the managers directly. I mean, I'll push them too, but
Yep.
if they haven't responded yet, that's not good. Okay. Thank you.
Great. And Vice Chair?
Sure, mine is sort of related, but not directly. So I've gone out in the last month, and I've engaged the top pool contractors in my city and the top water heating contractors in my city. And with 100% certainty, every single one, including the owners of some of these businesses, and they're multi-truck businesses, so they're not the smallest, they have all said point blank, why would you do ever electric? That's so inefficient. Gas is much cheaper to run, and it's better for the environment. So the issue here is we can adopt reach codes and piss off all the contractors, or we can start a process of educating the public. And I really fervently believe this, because once I saw the Panama video, those ads brought back flashbacks of watching these commercials as a kid. And I'm not, they may have actually shown them to us in elementary school too, as part of the Mr. Science videos. We have 2 generations worth of re-education that we need to do. And if I am asking for electric pool heater, heat pump system, knowing exactly how efficient they are, and you guys can imagine I've probably got my facts and figures pretty straight down to the exact models I want, and have him look at me and say point blank that is a bad answer economically because it costs way too much to operate, and it's not as efficient. We've got a huge uphill battle. So I got to look back at you. I get the reach codes, but man, I really want to see us hitting some of these architects and these contractors and suppliers out there to say, wait a minute, current data, side by side, my on-demand hot water heater versus a heat pumped hot water heater, or side by side my gas pool heater, which, man, it's got a big 2-inch pipe. It uses a lot of gas, versus a heat pump pool heater or spa heater. Unless we can start communicating that, it doesn't matter what we do in reach codes, all we're going to do is get a whole bunch of people mad at us.
Good point.
If I could mention maybe one thing. So in addition to with Joint Venture Silicon Valley, like having dedicated meetings with different industry stakeholders, there's also a component of public education that's a part of the scope of work of those activities, specifically organizing all-electric home tours, organizing induction cooktop.
We need just straight side-by-side comparison of efficiency, because that's what the contractors are telling me. And I will tell you this, it'll be 10 times easier to adopt REACH codes if the citizens are showing up saying, why isn't it easier to put in place?
If we had
Gas
fact sheets in
or
this
electric.
format that sort of said, water heaters, solar, right, or
Water heaters, pool heaters. I mean, think of the places that
Yeah.
use lots of gas.
Right.
Cooktops can be
Right.
listed on there. Jeannie's story of a gas dryer being replaced with a gas dryer. I mean, if you go to the store today and you ask any sales clerk in any store, the answer is gas is more efficient. And that's 2 generations of education that we have to start putting facts out, I think, immediately. The association's great, hitting some of the big people, great. But the guy in the showroom, the guys who own the small plumbing contractors and the pool installer companies, they're not within a million miles of these messages.
Otherwise, what's going to happen when these REACH codes come to councils is you're going to have them show up.
Pissed off.
Yes.
And they're, right, and the real estate folks, and they're going to come after us. And we're going to go, and our colleague, well, we may be all excited, but our colleagues are going to go, maybe not this year, right? I couldn't agree more with Howard's point.
Message clear. Yes, one more comment.
I guess whatever Howard saying and Rod saying leads us to a conclusion. We've got to do some intensive marketing campaigns on this, and that may mean that we get to TV and to the media and budget some money for that. Otherwise, just having meetings, only people show up who are really interested. And I know you've done a lot of meetings. I've attended some of them. But I think it sounds like this is going to be a mass media election campaign. Maybe we should start thinking about budgeting for that.
All right.
So,
Yes, please.
okay, just wanted to mention the supply chain. Actors in the supply chain are certainly on our radar and a part of the scope of work of the joint venture stakeholder engagement. And we also have like contractor engagement through the heat pump water heater program.
And end users, I hope. I mean, can't we
And
just
end users as well.
put on our website the top gas hot water heater next to the top heat pump water heater and say how much energy and how much cost are each? And what would be really bad is if we did all that analysis and it was worse. If it's worse, we're going to have to fix that. And fix it may be another program to offer rebates or something.
Yeah,
And
we've got the message. We'll get that.
Just regarding marketing, just to give you more visibility to that, we are also working with Building Decarb Coalition on marketing campaigns, and led by Pam.
Great. All right, I think we have talked that item. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, we are going to move on to item 5, the Bike to the Future 2019 recap, and we have our communications manager, Pamela Leonard. Welcome.
And directors, I'm Pamela Leonard, the communications manager. I'm here really just to introduce you to Colleen McCamey. She is our Climate Corps Fellow that we've been hosting since last September. That is a fellowship program for recent college graduates. And Colleen has been working on Bike to the Future since she got here. And she has done a tremendous job with improving upon this only second year of the competition. So as we cue the presentation when she gets up here, Colleen's gonna lead you through a high-level run-through of the events for the day for any of you who were unable to attend.
Cool. Hi, Chair, Vice Chair, and Board. I'm very excited to present today on Bike to the Future, and we're going to take a little travel back in time for a Bike to the Future recap. Perfect. And to start off, I just want to say thank you to Silicon Valley Clean Energy's board. I know all the students and community really appreciated the event, and this board made it possible and able for it to be a great event for the community. And here are some photos from the day as well. We have all the teams. You could see teams working on their bikes, enjoying the day, cheering on their teams, and just some of the great attendees there as well. And to start it off, we want to kind of give you a feel of how the day went with the video. And it's going to be pulling up very soon.
Welcome to our second annual Bike to the Future event. We're holding it here today at the...
A little technical. We're actually going to be ending with the Bike to the Future video. So the suspense will be throughout the whole presentation. So we are going to jump right in, and here we go.
Oh, goodness. Looks like we're having some very technical difficulties here.
Maybe you're controlling.
Would it be possible to pull down the presentation, please? In presentation mode, thank you. Can we start again? Looks like we're having some technical difficulties on this. We just see a screen that looks a little distorted.
Oh, perfect, yeah. No. The suspense is still, oh, perfect.
Time travel is never easy, so.
Yeah. It takes a lot of technological, to travel back in time.
I think we're good to go. If we can have the presentation up again, please. Thank you.
Perfect. And so Bike to the Future, to jump back in, is an electric bike building scholarship competition for high school students to engage in engineering, design, and build an electric bike from a regular mechanical bike to convert it to an electric bike over the course of 3 months. And so it's no cost to participate for the students, which makes it accessible to all students who want to participate. And it's just a great way to support the community and engage schools, educators, and parents with Silicon Valley Clean Energy and create that familiarity with us. Perfect. And so why Bike to the Future? Bike to the Future is a great way to reinvest into our community, to our schools and students, and supporting STEAM education. It really provides a hands-on experience and learning opportunity for students to build a bike, build their batteries, connect the motor, all of those aspects on the bike. And it also encourages a green future. In our kickoff meeting, we had presented our decarbonization roadmap to motivate and inspire students to continue on this green path and clean technologies, as we've shown that there's lots of work that will be happening in the future to create a green jobs and just clean community. Now it looks like we're frozen in time.
Is this limited to certain high schools or?
Do you mind just, do you want to just continue speaking? And we have the slides in front of us, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a great question because it leads into our next slide. So it's open to high schools within our service area, and we did open it to the Campbell Unified School District, which includes students within our school district as well.
So other high schools in other service areas can participate, but they need special permission or something, or?
So it is just our service area, which, yeah.
So some of them are in San Jose. They're part of the Campbell Union High School District, which goes across 6 cities.
Okay.
And we had participants from Branham High School and Lee High School and Live Oaks.
Yes, so we did have.
Yes, they are in fact outside, but they're part of the educational program within our district.
Is there a reason to restrict it to our service area? I mean, if we're trying to promote something, is there a reason why we're restricting it to our service area? Maybe that's something we should think about.
Yeah, we would like to provide the benefit to our ratepayers for for all that has given back to the community. And so Bike to the Future, from the last year's Bike to the Future in 2018, we had 7 teams participating and approximately 120 attendees. Cool, I think we're back on. And was at Gilroy Gardens. And then in 2019, we had 16 teams participate with approximately 200 attendees at the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds, which supported a county nonprofit. And jumping ahead to the high schools, these were the participating high schools that had teams in the competition. And we also had students from almost all of our member communities participating within these teams as well. And so leading up to the event here, we had a kickoff meeting to get the students excited about the event and learn all about the different guidelines and registration packet. And then we also hosted 2 spot welding workshops, which had an e-bike specialist and allowed students to gain access to a spot welder if they weren't able to find access to one, and just really get that hands-on engagement, as well as a team social media challenge, which I will jump into, which talks about really helped further our engagement on the platforms. And so teams had submitted a photo for us to post onto our Facebook and Instagram, and the competition was to have as many likes, comments, and shares for their specific photo. And so this really increased our engagement, and as you can see here, perfect. We had over 2,000 people had the first post had reached, and on average we get about 200 reaches on an average post, so this was a great improvement there. And then on the other post down to the bottom right, we had about 786 post clicks. On an average we get about 20 to 30 post clicks per post that we have. So this really helped boost our engagement and create a broader familiarity with Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And in addition, you could see here when the competition started, the spike in Facebook likes really skyrocketed, and we increased it by 6.5% increase within 30 days. Cool. And so jumping into the event, these were kind of the breakdown of all the different competitions, and so I'll go into them further in advance. So we had the acceleration challenge to start off. This calculated the fastest time that students' bikes were to reach 20 miles per hour from 0 miles per hour. And so the winning team for this competition challenge had reached 20 miles per hour in an astonishing 2.5 seconds, which was, really impressive. And then jumping on to the battery flex, this one really measured the range and efficiency of the batteries. So students had 25 minutes to complete a designated course, and after that we had recorded the watt hours before they completed the course and after they completed the course to measure which batteries were most efficient. And jumping on ahead, we had an obstacle course as well, which was fun. It tested the e-bike's functionality and maneuverability. It kind of played along our Back to the Future theme, in that they went were stuck in 1980, had to get to school in 2019 in time, and so they had to go through tunnels, had to stop at the library, and really had some twists and turns. But this also tied in how these bikes can be used in transportation to get to school, outside of an obstacle course and in real life situations. And so beyond the bikes as well, we had different aspects of the competition to really play upon different skill sets. So we had a poster presentation for teams to really outline how they built the bike and build upon their research skills, a time machine solution presentation as well, which teams presented on an innovative strategy on how we can achieve a clean transportation future, and that really played upon students' creative skills and public presentation skills. Our Thrifty 50 was teams received 2 additional points for every $50 that they were under the allocated budget, and so that really played on resourcefulness for students to look within the community on where to get items, and then innovation, which teams were judged on the creativity, aesthetics of their bikes, and just innovative ideas used to build their bikes and for their competitions presentations. And so the exciting part, we have the winning teams announcement. First place, we had the IYA Industries from Homestead High School.
Excuse me, which city are they in?
So it's Homestead High School is in Cupertino, and the students, we had 2 students on that team from Sunnyvale and 1 from Los Altos.
Actually, I think they draw, they have a minor fraction of the student body from Cupertino, it's true.
But it is Homestead.
No, I was just eager to beat the second place team, so.
Yeah, and Homestead High School is, in Cupertino, so it's a win for all. And so the scholarship award for them was $7,500, and it's used for an academic scholarship. And second place, we had the Spartans from Mountain View High School. And they had received a $5,000 scholarship. And they also had 3 students from Mountain View and 1 from Los Altos. And third place,
Yeah.
third place, we had the BBB team from Branham High School, which included 2 students from Campbell. And they
All
had
right, let's clap for them too. All right, good job. Good job.
And then last but not least as well, we had our Team Spirit Award for our Homestead Mustang riders who'd really exemplified great team spirit. They had SVCE logos on their bike, and it was just really all into the competition. And and so their students were from Sunnyvale and Cupertino as well.
All right.
And that wraps up the presentation. And again, I want to say thank you to all of the board's support for this great event.
Yay, thank you. Thank you, staff.
Are we going to get the same location next year?
No,
I've been making a pitch for
can't afford it.
Shoreline Park.
So no location has been set for next year.
Shoreline would be good.
Wouldn't it?
I liked it because it was just bigger. It was better than the previous year. So that means
It
you
was
have to
a-
amp it up if it's Shoreline.
Any luck with the video?
Oh, yeah.
And then member Alaki?
Yeah, I mean, you've done an outstanding job, and this is really a great competition. There's about 7 schools, 7 teams, but there's like 8 schools. There's still schools in our district that have not participated yet. And you doubled from last year to this year, and you'll double again, I suppose, if you go by the same rate. So I guess you should reserve Levi's Stadium pretty soon.
Bike to the Future 2020.
Well, a little bit more.
Is the, oh, yes, go ahead. Member Bruin. And I think the video's ready?
Is the video ready? We can do that. Why don't we do that first?
Go ahead. Oh.
Welcome to our second annual Bike to the Future event. We're holding it here today at the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds, and we have a beautiful day and 16 teams. Looking forward to a great competition. So my role here today is to serve as a judge, and we'll be evaluating the contestants on a variety of different criteria, including the quality of their presentation, the design of their bikes, and the overall spirit that the teams are bringing to the event. And again, it's really a great blend of technology, school spirit, the environment. I mean, we're really bringing a lot of great elements together with Bike to the Future.
I think this is a great program that this SVCT is running. So I'm very thankful to them to offer such a program to our wider community.
Hey, great job. Yes, Member Bruins?
So I attended last year, and I attended only a portion of this year. But these things, I mean, board members, you really don't want to miss this. This is incredible. And the one I think that stood out in my mind this year was on the acceleration challenge, okay? She told you what the time was. What she didn't tell you was how the team achieved it. And I think they probably could have done better if they had modified one aspect of their design. But basically, what was the school that did? The speed one.
Oh, the speed. So the IYA Industries had the 2.5.
So what they did is that they were able to do this because they went outside of the box, and it was a riderless bike. Okay, and so they had a.
They call that an autonomous vehicle.
Yes, I was going to say. But by taking the weight off of that bike, now the first attempt out the gate, the bike just went. Okay, so they took it offline and they made some adjustments, and then they came back out with the bike. And it was the thing that slowed them down. It was not completely wireless. It was actually with a tether, and the poor guy who had the control couldn't keep up with the bike. So it's kind of like the bike was, it's like the dog that walks the owner while this bike was walking the guy. So, I mean, but it was just amazing because there's nothing in our rules that said you had to have a rider on that bike. And it was so interesting because last year when we did this event, this was the event where we had an actual accident because the rider started in a standing position and lost their balance and the bike went over. And so we learned, and so this year the team learned and said, okay, you have to be in the seated position. And so you couldn't do that standing, and then all of a sudden here comes the autonomous bike. So again, I would encourage you guys, it is worth it, it is fabulous. And I think it was a little bit, nothing against Gilroy Gardens and all, but I think having it a little bit more centrally located also helped a lot. And I think Shoreline would be a great thing. And Margaret, I would encourage you to make that happen.
I'll make a pitch. Thank you. Member Sayag and then Member Ellenberg?
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it. It sounds like a great event. When do you normally send notice out to schools that this is upcoming? Yeah. And is there a way I can make sure that Los Gatos High is a winner next year?
Well, they had 2 Saratoga teams. I mean, come on.
So I had sent out the emails to a lot of schools starting, I believe, in about November, and a little bit before in October, late October, November. And so, any help reaching out to schools would be great for next year. Yeah.
And a second question: is it limited to? I know it's limited to schools in our district. Are you looking just at public schools?
No, public and private.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Member Ellenberg and then Member Smith.
Thank you. I did have the opportunity to attend this year. I'm sorry I didn't make the video. I got to welcome everybody. And it was really a lot of fun to walk around at the beginning and talk to kids and look at their posters. I did notice that boys outnumbered girls by probably 5 or more to 1. And I think that it's worth our time as we look to iterate and improve the program to look at incentives or encouragement around including more girls in the event. But I thought it was just really well done, a lot of fun. I'm partial to the county fairgrounds, so happy to help make that happen if for whatever reason Shoreline
It was really
doesn't,
nice, yeah.
doesn't work out next year. But congratulations, this was really a tremendous effort, and you did a fabulous job putting this together. And finally, if you could send, or whoever's the fellow next year, I don't know what the plan is, send us all information to promote signups, because we all have good networks as well, and I would love to be able to share that with all of the D4 schools. Thanks.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Member Smith?
Yeah, I really appreciated the event and the energy, and one thing that I found notable was the adults that got into the spirit of it as well. Who brings a pencil bicycle?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And so I have this video of, I'm happy to share it with the staff at SVCE, but of the pencil bicycle doing the obstacle course. And even the photo booth, which I have a prized possession here, even the photo booth was pulled on a bicycle. So it was a very consistent bicycle themed thing, and the adults had a lot of fun too. So it was a great event, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well done.
Oh, yes, Member Beltran.
Thank you. I'm really sorry I missed it. I was out of town, but I was very much looking forward to it. And I'm so excited to know that my alma mater was participating, Live Oak, down in South Valley, that everyone loves to forget about sometimes. But I wanted to say we have a youth advocacy committee with our city council, and I think this would be great to kind of give to the kids and ask them to perpetuate that as well, and the energy and excitement, especially if they've been involved before. We've got another high school that maybe they could generate some excitement there. So I'd love to echo what Susan was saying as far as if you could send that to me and maybe make sure, I'm imagining that everyone else has some type of youth input, and if we could forward that to them, that would probably be a great way to do it as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just want to, on behalf of the board, thank all of you, all the staff for your hard work, especially you, Colleen. It ended up being a hot day. I caught the end of it, and yes, and windy too. So thank you for braving the weather forces, and the kids looked like they were having a great time. The parents seemed to get more into the competition, I thought. But yeah, what a great way to promote what we're doing. So thank you all for your hard work. All right, we will move on, and I think we can finish the last part quickly. Item 6 is the Executive Committee report, and we met on April 26th to discuss the CCA cost share agreement and received an update on mobility and built environment programs, both of which were on the agenda this evening. And our next meeting of the Executive Committee will occur on Friday, May 24th at 9:30 a.m. Is there a Finance and Administration Committee report, Vice Chair?
We have again not met, but it's rumored that we may meet this month or early next month.
Great, thank you. Director Sinks, do you have a Legislative Ad Hoc Committee report?
Yes, we do, and we did have a meeting, and I'll note that at the last board meeting, there was a concern by many of us here on the lack of certification of many of the integrated resource plans of CCAs. It seemed like bureaucracy gone amok at the PUC. On recommendation of staff under further consideration at the committee, we decided to pick our battles, and we have refrained from now from sending a letter to the PUC. But if it turns out to be something that gets played as a bashing opportunity, we will certainly rethink that and weigh in. So we did discuss that, and I hope that's acceptable to my colleagues here, just being strategic about our asks of the PUC. And we think we can, I believe staff believes we can handle this issue with no big effort. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. As Hillary reported, we also looked at the various bills that would have an impact on us. Things are still very fluid. We looked at the bills around centralized procurement, including AB 56, bills on integrated resource planning, CCA code of conduct, ownership of grid edge resources, and defining the provider of last resort. So we discussed these bills. We decided that they're still in a fluid state. We are generally in concurrence with the positions that CalCCA has taken, and we will, as Hillary said, reconvene in June. If anybody has input to the Ledge Committee on things we ought to consider or look out for, we will take all input and convene in June. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And there's no report from the Audit Committee. I'm sorry, I neglected to ask if there are any questions on any of the committee reports from the board. Any public comment on any of the reports? If not, we'll go on to board member announcements and direction on future agenda items. Any announcements from board members? Yes, Member Gibbons.
I love talking here. Talking anywhere? So I didn't tell you anything new yet. Thank you so much. I just wanted to take note, there was an announcement in the paper today that Santa Clara voted to not allow any Bloom Energy products in their area. So I thought that was of relevance to us. Two is, as you know, I'm on the American Institute National Strategic Council, and our decarbonization program, our decarbonization roadmap, and our programs have now gone viral on the AIA National Strategic Council distribution. I'm trying really hard. My goal, it's a big uphill battle, but my goal is to have the AIA announce themselves as the first professional organization to go decarb. I mean, it's our profession, so we need to do it. I'm trying to make that happen. We have a convention in Las Vegas in June. We'll see what happens. So I'm gotten wonderful feedback from all of your hard work. So it's nice for you to know that it's out there. And I've actually been able to explain it. So that says a lot for the quality of the information as it's been presented. The next thing is the competition that I mentioned. The AIA California Council is running this competition, and I have been asked to identify projects. No guarantee, of course, but any project that your city or a nonprofit has, the criteria is that you have a program and a location, a real project. No architect hired to date. This is just something you're getting started with. It'll be open to architects nationally and internationally, and all students. So it's been lots of fun in the past years. So if anyone has any project ideas, please feel free to just send it to me, and I will forward it on. The decisions will be probably made in June as to what project they will pick. It's a modest amount of time for the agency involved. They say 8 to 20 hours, so it's not a commitment by your staff or the organization.
Is this solely for public works-driven projects by public agencies?
No, what do you call it? Nonprofits. Nonprofits and public, yes, yep. And let's see, where's my other note? Let me see. Oh, and I mentioned the
Is there a formal announcement somewhere we can download?
No, it's just in my brain. If I find, I'm helping with the organizational aspect of it, trying to come up with ideas for projects, and then there'll be a formal announcement of the actual competition, which is my next segue, which, just for general information, the San Mateo chapter of the American Institute of Architects is opening today a competition for the design of ADUs. And I didn't get in on that early enough, but I'm going to try and push the REACH code and the, what do you call it, time of use information for that type of stuff. Is that it? I think that's it.
Great, thank you. Any other announcements? If not, I think June is going to be a meaty meeting, so please all be prepared. But the reward is we have July off. So with that, I will adjourn this evening's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.